All right, folks, welcome to episode 4 of Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. I am, as always, your host, co-founder, and president of IoT Media and Entertainment, Alex Trader. And we've got an awesome episode today. I hope that you enjoy. We've got Mike DiPetrillo, who is the Chief Revenue Officer of Devio, incredible blockchain company backed by Avnet, just doing some really, really amazing things. I hope you check it out. I hope you enjoy, and we will see you at the end. What's happening, man?
Hey, Alex, how you doing today?
I'm good.
You look like you're finishing lunch or something.
I was grabbing dinner that everything in the city of Pittsburgh closes at like 3 o'clock. So,
oh, that's not good.
Yeah, everybody's still they're on trying to figure it out mode, right?
Yeah.
Opening back up.
Yeah.
And I did a little walk ski, and because I'm a big guy, and because it's like 80 degrees out, 100% humidity, I sweat like crazy. So, just trying to wipe myself off.
Yeah, I have no idea what temperatures and humidity is like. I'm in Florida, so.
You guys do a little bit of you do a little bit of the humidity.
Yeah, a little bit. Yep.
Just a little bit. That's fun, man. Yeah, we do Florida like maybe once a year.
Oh yeah.
And every time I'm just like a puddle everywhere I go. And then you go into the AC, or you go to a shop or something, you're just blasted with the AC.
Yeah,
and you go out and I'm a puddle again.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, man. So I appreciate you, carving out some time and jumping onto this thing with me.
Yep. Should be fun.
Should be fun. What are you going to drink tonight?
So the wife hooked me up.
Nice.
I got my hit of beer.
I love it, man. Where's my wife?
She is super awesome, fantastic. So
that is amazing, man. What do you got? I see some. Is that Lagunitas?
We got Lagunitas in here. We've got Sam Adams in here. We've got some Wild Ride from California or Colorado or something like that in here, and something else back there, Beer Hippie or something like that. So,
oh, that's
I'll
awesome.
Probably go for the Lagunitas right now. So I got the bucket of beer. If I make it all the way through this bucket, this should be a really interesting little talk that we have.
Well, I'm drinking some High West Rendezvous. So if you make it through that bucket, I'll probably be about halfway through this bottle, and I'll probably end up sleeping on the floor here in the office. I don't think I'll make it home tonight.
Yeah. Well, Eric, cheers to you. I'll open the loggy first.
Cheers, buddy. I'm going to crack this open, and so folks may or may not notice, I'm in a new location tonight. I'm not at my dining room table. In the city tonight, which is kind of exciting. Things are opening back up here in Pittsburgh, and they've lifted the mask mandate. And TrueFit, my employer, has been kind enough to say that I can go ahead and do this. I'm on the second floor of our open atrium, which a little bit of variance in my background. So I couldn't do the bar tonight because I got a meeting after this downtown. So I opted for the office.
Yeah. No, that's very good. I am in the home office, temporary home office. We sold our house a couple weeks ago, so we have a rental house. So it's a bunch of kind of storage room / home office right now, and until our new home gets built. So
that's awesome, man. Well, congratulations on the sale of the home. I know that these days it's pretty simple. Like you just breathe and you have the conversation with your spouse, and all of a sudden you've got 10 offers coming in before you even list it. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Cheers.
Salute.
So Mike, I want to get us kicked off. Give me a little bit of background on you. Give me some background on, what you're working on now. And at some point in time, I do want to go all the way back because you have some pretty exceptional experience in your industry specifically. And so I want to kind of talk through your past, how you got to VMware, what you did at VMware, and what ultimately led you to doing what you guys are doing today at Devio. So take some time and fill us in on you and your past.
Well, it all started when I was a wee lad. No, I probably won't go back that far. But usually when I introduce myself, for the company I work for now, which is Devio, I start with a little bit of my experience at VMware. That was the longest stint in my career. I was always sort of a startup guy. Going back a little bit before Devio, I created one of the first credit card processing systems on the web a long time ago in the early 90s, back when it was like,
Wow,
Gopher was the browser kind of a thing.
that's awesome.
So we did that for a large insurance company, and then, or I did that for a large insurance company, and then I created the first voice over IP networks back when it was kind of in beta with Cisco. We did that with a company, or I did that with a company out in Colorado. And then I created a search engine, on the internet again in the early days, and then took that work and went over to another company that did search engines and content delivery and stuff like that, a company called Ink2Me, which was pretty popular at the time. It powered like Yahoo and Alta Vista and all these other search engines. And then these funny yellow boxes started showing up in the data center with the word Google stamped on the front of it. And slowly but surely put us out of business. We laughed at it at first because we are like, what a funny word, Google. They'll never go anywhere. Had I known, right? Had I known. But, so did that, from a startup standpoint. And then they went bust in the dot-bomb days. And a lot of them ended up down at VMware. VMware was early in its days back then. Yeah. There was about 140 people there. Wow. And we started to join to really sell the product, right? Most of those people were engineers and some marketers and stuff like that, and administrative staff, typical types of people. And then there were 7 of us in the sales side of the world that started selling VMware around the world. So did that and did a lot of startup stuff inside of VMware even, changed my career about, 4 or 5 times inside of VMware, started virtualization, started our competitive intelligence group, going out there and looking at competition, did that for about 4 years, founded our cloud go-to-market team, did that for about 4 years, founded a team that built a piece of software that did, distance learning for complex systems. Like if you needed a bunch of computer systems, all stitched together, we could stamp that out in kind of a lab environment and let people interact with that. Like if you need your own little mini cloud, we could build a little mini cloud and stuff like that. So we did that for enterprises. I hear that that's selling very well today in the COVID world. It's a little too early for it, but they still have it over there at VMware and it's doing pretty well. And then left that group and founded our blockchain team. So took it from kind of 2 researchers that they had and the prototype that they had there to about 85 engineers and a pretty successful enterprise blockchain. We did stuff with like the Australian Securities Exchange, Hong Kong Exchange, Singapore, and lots of other stuff. And that continues to be there and be successful, from what I hear over at VMware. But I left VMware back in January 2020, looked around and said, I have all this blockchain expertise. Let me go and see, what's happening in the blockchain space. I got pinged by a company called Devio that I'd never heard of, small little startup company out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, of all places. And the president of the company, Ray Quintana, pinged me and said, hey, Mike, we'd love to talk to you about Devio. You got the world's fastest blockchain, does 8 million transactions per second. And I said, yeah, you and every other white paper that's out there, Ray. Talk to me when you really have something. He said, no, we really have something. So I was heading out west anyways to visit some people and said, I'll swing by and talk to you guys. Sat down with Tom, our CEO, and Ray, our president, and Nick, who's our chief scientist, and talked about what they had and really grilled them because I knew blockchain extremely well.
Sure.
All the way down to the technical nuts and bolts. I found out that what they have is actually real. And more so, it was done so in a very nuanced way, very simple way to get the scale that they have and the performance. They had really solved a lot of things that were happening in blockchain, a lot of stuff that people had on roadmaps 2, 3, 4 years from now. Stuff like sharding, which Ethereum, still hasn't launched. And even when they do launch it, it's not quite what we do for, sharding. Just a lot of interesting technology inside of there. And so I joined the team. And it was a great time to join the team because it was kind of late February, early March of 2020. And this little thing called COVID happened to come around the same time, which became very interesting to try and, then sell to people. But that really pushed Devio into the IoT space. We had been working with a company called Avnet doing several different things. And you can see them partner on our website. Small company. Distributes a lot of electronics and stuff like that. They had a downstream customer of theirs that came to them and said, hey, we're a manufacturing facility. We need something to let us track people and where they are in a sort of a privatized fashion because of COVID, being here, but we still need people to manufacture stuff. Otherwise we have to shut down. So Avnet said, no, we can help you out with that. We can manufacture the device, but this needs to be stored in a private, secure fashion. And so they said, that's a blockchain, and Devio is our blockchain partner. And they introduced us, and we put together a solution for that. So that became our DevTrace solution. It's a COVID proximity solution. It uses small little wearable devices that you wear. It takes that information, uploads it through a Bluetooth gateway. So this is, pretty common in the IoT space, right? Regado happens to be our Bluetooth gateway that we use, but really going to go through anything that streams through MQTT up to our blockchain, and it stores those proximity events. So if you're wearing one of these sensors and I'm wearing one of these sensors, and we come within range of each other, 10, 20 feet, it'll start to record that proximity information. If we get really close to each other, within 6 feet at the time, then it'll provide haptic feedback, so it'll start buzzing, which they really liked on the manufacturing floor to keep people apart because they couldn't hear stuff, but they could feel the buzzing. We built this. It would store my proximity events inside of my cryptographic wallet on the blockchain. It would store yours in your cryptographic wallet, which was also nice because it keeps that in a private fashion where not anybody can get to that. You manage your data. And that's one of the nice things I like about blockchain, is that it has the premise for us to be able to take back over control of our data. Right. And you'll see that as I talk through, several of the different solutions. But so your proximity information would be stored in your wallet. And then let's say I got sick and said, I have COVID, which I actually did last July, but I have COVID, and I report myself sick and everything like that. Then we could unlock that from an on-chain transaction and say, okay, here are the devices that I was, within 6 feet of for more than 10 minutes in a 24-hour period, CDC guidelines. And I could alert the other people. I could say, Alex, you've been in contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID. You need to quarantine. You need to get tested, et cetera, et cetera. So this is actually pretty popular. We started to sell it to like healthcare institutions, big enterprise companies like insurance companies that had, lots of office space and stuff like that. Really, coal mine, for example, was one of our customers, manufacturing facilities. So it became pretty popular. We tested it out on cruise boats, and then the cruise boats, as you know, still haven't sailed. So they're still waiting to use it. But we tested it out on kind of the cruise boats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was a very popular solution. And that got us into the realization that, hey, blockchain is actually pretty popular and pretty useful, from an IoT perspective. Yeah. When I was doing blockchain at VMware, another group that I was commingled with was quantum computing. So we were doing all the quantum, post-quantum analysis.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which was really hard. At one time there, I got asked to do a 5-minute pitch to all of our executive staff, all of our senior leadership, which is about 1,000 people at VMware at the time.
Wow.
So I had 5 minutes to explain quantum computing and blockchain. Why don't you just ask me to explain how the world works in 5 minutes? It'd be easier, kind of a thing. But it went down pretty well. And then another group that was commingled with us as well was the IoT group. Right. And so we always did stuff together. All of our researchers worked together. All of our product groups worked together. So I had a lot of experience doing IoT work with blockchain. And blockchain is really nice for that because it's really good at storing time series ordered data, which is what IoT is. It's streaming in time series ordered data. Right. And then we need to do analysis on this. You do it with AI or ML or something like that, to do business analysis on all this IoT data. So it stores that stuff, rather well. The problem with that sometimes in the IoT world is it streams a lot of data, right? And blockchain is really good about faithfully storing that data, but it replicates it generally to all the nodes, right? So everybody has a copy of that data. So compare that to a database where we might have had a petabyte of information. Now I've got, 10 nodes, I've got 10 petabytes of information. I always said the storage people should be paying us money, right? We're going to just crank through some storage here. Now, there's blockchain technology that can handle that. You can use sharding to sort of separate those data sets. You can use pruning of the blockchain, which very few blockchains actually allow pruning. to maintain consistency. So you can sort of offload some of that data and then still keep it in a consistent state to deal with, just the regular consistency. But IoT started to become very, very popular, and that led us into kind of current iterations of stuff that we're doing. For example, we're launched our Dev ESG platform. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And so on the environmental side, for example, we have a partner company. We actually have a lot of partner companies, but one of the partner companies goes out there and measures the land that you have and how much carbon the land can consume, right? And they do this with IoT devices, and then they stream that, again, through the gateways over MQTT up to our blockchain. On the other side of it, you have people that can consume that data. So for example, we can go to a golf course. Golf course has lots of land, right? I don't know if you like to play golf. I like to play golf. I'm in Florida. It's the mecca of golf, right? Kind of a thing. We have golf courses everywhere. So you can go to a golf course and say, hey, we can actually make you money because you can take that golf course that's just sitting there, right? It's all open green space. We can measure all of that, see how much carbon, is being sequestered from the atmosphere into that land at that point in time. And then we can, through that data set that we have, through that verified data set that's secure on the blockchain, it's immutable, it's always there, we can see the records, we can actually use smart contracts to say, after so much of this is in here that represents a metric ton of carbon, we can generate a carbon credit offset or a carbon offset credit, to put out there in the marketplace. Yeah. So you, as a golf course, can go and put in these IoT sensors, use our platform, our Dev ESG platform. We'll generate these tokens, we'll put them on the marketplace, and you can make money basically from the land that is just sitting there doing nothing, right? We could sell it to universities that do the same thing, right? Universities have baseball fields, football fields, soccer fields, right? Practice fields, quads, all this land that's just sitting there doing nothing that the university can now make money on, right? So that's the power of IoT and blockchain, is being able to really tokenize that data set and leverage it and use it, in powerful ways.
That's incredible. And that you gave me, there was so much information there.
Yeah.
and I love it, man, because it's one of those things, and I've made promises that I don't know if you will or won't be able to keep, but I've made promises to people that we are going to attempt to demystify blockchain
okay, good.
on this webcast, right? Mm-hmm. And so, kind of there's so many different things. Like you talked about several things that you guys have the ability to do with Devio. Kind of demystify that for folks that aren't in the tech space or don't really understand blockchain and smart contracts and that data. Like what does utilizing a platform like Devio, what does it do for them in layman's terms?
Yeah, so I'll back it up and just say blockchain in general, right? What does it do? So a lot of people, when they think of blockchain, they immediately think of like Bitcoin or Ethereum or some cryptocurrency that's trading out there, right? There's been a lot in the news. And so we have to sort of back up and say this isn't actually cryptocurrency that's doing this, right? Yeah. We're using it more of along the lines of a database. And I apologize for the dog barking in the background.
That's all right, man.
It's back there. It always happens in this scenario. So anyways, we have blockchain for us is not necessarily cryptocurrency. I'll get back to the cryptocurrency side in a little bit, but think of it more in the context of a database. The other thing that you have to think of in the blockchain context is there's many different ways to store the data, but more importantly, come to what does consistency mean? So we achieve what we call immutability. Stuff goes into the blockchain and it stays in the blockchain. We keep every single record. So a database, if you think of it in a traditional database, and most people know what databases are and stuff like that. If I record a record that says, I have $100 in my bank account, right? That goes into a field in the database. If all of a sudden I put another $20 in, we don't add another field in the database that says, here's my account part 2, right? That says I have $120 in there now. We simply change the value of that field. It says now it has $120, right? So you don't really see all that data. Now we can back it up and we can go and replay the records, but at any point in time, all we see is the value of that field. Yeah. In the blockchain world, what we do is we say, okay, I have $100 that I'm going to put in as this initial transaction, right? In the blockchain world, we go and create a block out of that. Now I'll get to blocks and what the chain is and all this stuff in just a second. But we create a block, so it has that transaction. So just think of it simply like a database. We just have that transaction in here. Now, when I add $20 to my checking account, we don't go and change the transaction that's in that block. What we do is we create a new block with a new transaction. So the old block is there, it says Mike has $100. The new block is in there at that point in time. It says Mike has $120 in his checking account. And we can see all of these things, and they always stay there. They're immutable. You can't change them. So we can't go back to this block and say, nope, we're going to change the contents of that block. Mike has $120, right? We just add another block that says, here's the current transaction and here's the current balance, right? Yeah. So that's one of the big differences between a database and blockchain is we're adding those blocks of transactions. Now, to make sure that it can't change, what we do is we take a hash of that first block. So basically just do a cryptographic hash on it. It's an algorithm that we run that says, here's a number representation of that block. Yeah. And we tie it into that second block. So the second block is cryptographically tied to the first block, right? So we're going to use stuff like cryptographically and cryptography, but we're still not talking cryptocurrency. But that's the way it works, is that that block is now intricately linked to this first block. To change anything, and we do so again and again and again and again and again with all these blocks. So to change anything in any of these blocks, we have to go break that cryptographic link, right? So we have to have some mega computer out there that can break that link. Usually they're linked with some, SHA-256 or ECSD algorithm or something like that. But we have to break that cryptographic link between that block. But when we do that, it invalidates all these other blocks that are out there. Yeah, we'd be able to see that, right? So if someone were to hack in there and try and do this, they have to not only break that cryptographic link, but they have to break all these other cryptographic links. And not only do that just on one computer, but in a blockchain world, we use a decentralized system. So we're running lots of blockchain nodes. They're all talking to each other, and they're all reaching consensus on each other. I'll get to consensus in just a second, but they're all reaching consensus, right? So I'd have to break the cryptographic links on all those blocks, and I'd have to do it on all these computers all at the same time. And all these different computers that are out there are all run by different organizations. So you're not just breaking into Mike's vault. You're breaking into Google, you're breaking into Apple, you're breaking into Microsoft, you're breaking into the federal government, you're breaking into whoever's running these blockchain nodes on this blockchain system. Yeah. So the chances of you pulling that off are extremely small.
It's incredible.
Extremely small, right? To be able to hack that thing. So it makes it very secure, and it makes it immutable, right? We're not going to be able to change these things. And that gives us what we call provenance of that data. It gives us the history of that data, which we can do a lot with now that we have the full provenance of that data, because I don't have to go to you and say, I trust what's in your database, but what about all these other transactions? You say they were there, can you replay those transactions for me? And sometimes we'll keep a transaction log and we can do all that stuff. But with the blockchain, we know that it's there. It's not going to change. No one's mucked with that data. And so that enables us to put everybody on what I call the same plane of data. All those participants that are on the blockchain, all those people that are running a node are seeing the exact same copy of the data all at the same time, and they know no one's mucked with it and no one's changed that. Yeah. So if we look at it from, again, going back to the database world, well, I can do that with database. I have a database here, and you're running a copy of a database over there, and we can do something called electronic data interchange, right, to send the information back and forth. So I can take my transaction and replicate it over to you, and you can store it, and we can keep those things in sync, right? Right. But EDI is known for one thing and one thing only, and that's usually breaking, right? I change one field, it breaks the synchronization link, and we get out of sync, or there's nothing to say that, okay, yeah, I replicated all my stuff over there, but now your application is actually dealing with a subset of that data, or you change the data. So our stuff is still in sync, but now you change the data over there, right? How do I know that your data set matches my data set and that neither of us are really mucking with the data? We don't, right? We can promise we're doing that, pinky swear it, but we're really not doing that. Right. So that's what blockchain enables us to do, is to put everybody on that same plane of data. And that's the real value in the non-cryptocurrency side of the world.
Right. Gotcha. Man, it's so wild. So are you guys, I mean, that was an amazing explanation. And I feel like if I was a business or an organization, I'd be like, man, we got to do this. Like, why are we not doing this? Are you guys facing resistance when having conversations from an enterprise level? Or are people pretty in tune to like, hey, this is the way the world is going. Like we see it, we see the value. Let's get it set up.
Yeah, there's a lot of stigma around here for two different reasons. One is, I'm going to go back to consensus for a second, right?
Yeah.
So blockchains have what they call a consensus mechanism. Where I propose something, this transaction that's going to go in here, I need everybody to agree that this transaction is actually the transaction. So there's many different ways to do that. Bitcoin, if you take it from like the cryptocurrency side of the world, and a lot of blockchains use something called proof of work, where I have to go in and solve some hard cryptographic problem. So all these nodes are trying to solve this big math problem on this elliptical curve, but they're trying to solve this big math problem that's going on out there. And the first one to actually solve that math problem, just guessing at it, they're just guessing these numbers, right? Yeah. The first one to solve that at that point in time gets to propose the rights for the block, right? So they'll say, okay, the transactions going for the block are this, and this is the valid transactions that are going to go into the block. So proof of work uses a lot of energy. Like currently, I think it's ranked 21st in the world by country rank. So it's just ahead of Sweden on how much energy it uses every year, the Bitcoin network, right? An insane amount of energy. And people are like, oh yeah, but it comes from hydro plants, and like people are using renewable energy for this and wind farms, and they're starting to, well, that's great that you're starting to try and bring that down, but you're still using that energy, which means
it's not going anywhere.
Give it to the manufacturing plant that's down the road because you're using all their power, right? So it's still not really green, right? You're stealing all the power from other stuff that we need to. Why don't you just reduce your energy consumption, using a better algorithm? And there are better algorithms that are out there. There's stuff called proof of stake, which Ethereum is starting to change too. But that's a little bit costly because now it says my ability to influence transactions or propose blocks on the system is based on the amount of stake that I have in it. The more money I pay in, the more, the higher I am on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's costly. Like you're going to go to an enterprise and say, hey, you need to put $1 billion in the system just so you can use it. What the heck? That's
why?
Why? Right. So that gets a little costly. So enterprises kind of poo-poo that, and they poo-poo the high energy consumption stuff.
Yeah.
And but there's another algorithm that's fairly popular out there called Byzantine fault tolerance. You're going to learn a lot of weird words.
This is incredible. I love it.
So Byzantine fault tolerance, or BFT, is basically based on what they would call the Byzantine generals problem. A long time ago in the Byzantine era, you would have, people riding around, generals on horseback with pigeons that would say, I'm going to send this pigeon over to my other general to tell him when to attack. And the problem was you never knew if the information you were getting was the real information. Like it could have been intercepted and it could have said, instead of attack, retreat, right? And then if you had 3 generals that attacked and 1 general that retreated, well, maybe you get squashed and it's a really bad day at the office because all your soldiers die, right? So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you can trust this information. So this Byzantine fault tolerant algorithm, which has long been taught in computer science and math and everything like this, is a way to reach consensus. So if I said, I heard the green was the next transaction, you heard green was the next transaction, Bob over here heard yellow was the next transaction, Cynthia heard green was the next transaction. Well, green is the transaction that we're going to agree on, right? Sorry, you get outvoted over there. Yeah. With your yellow vote. So that's how Byzantine fault tolerant works in a high nutshell, right? It's a lot more complex than that. That's essentially what we do, is kind of proof of validation is what we call it, our version of that at Devio. Extremely fast, very low energy consumption. We basically use, no energy. We say it's 1/1,000,000th the cost of Ethereum, for example, on the energy cost. So extremely energy efficient, extremely performant, and that is one of the Devio secret sauces. For our blockchain is our efficiency, and speed and scale. So consensus, and I don't know how we got on this topic originally, but I said, oh, you asked a question about enterprises, and why don't
they? Are they given pushback, or
one is the consensus, because you get kind of a bad taste in that energy consumption associated with it. The other thing that they're pushing back on is so many people got excited about blockchain, but didn't know really where the sweet spot was. So they said, ooh, that's a blockchain problem. Boom. That's a blockchain problem. Boom. That's a blockchain problem. Boom. Instead of just using a database when they should just use a database, right? Again, blockchain is great when you want everybody on that same plane of data. But if there's a central authority maintaining that data set and they're not going to give up, control of that or governance of that, then just use a database, right? Don't use blockchain if it's just one group and they're running all the nodes and they're the only people who are running the nodes.
Yeah.
It was also very hard in the enterprise when you said, okay, well, we do want everybody on the same plane of data. And people went after supply chain. They're like, this is great for supply chain because everybody can see the same inventory and we can pass the data back and forth. And this is awesome. And it is awesome. But then you started to have people say, well, I'm a shipping company, right? And then the shipping company is insured by an insurance company and they're backed by a finance company and they have a manufacturing company over here and they have a purchaser over here. All these different people could be involved in this supply chain. Well, that opens up two problems. One is they're all regulated by different regulations, right? This person over here, this might be a healthcare group at the far end that needed this supply from the manufacturer, right? So they're kind of probably HIPAA regulated over here or something like that. These people from the bank are, FISMA regulated, or FIPS regulated. These people over here need GDPR. These people don't need GDPR. All these different regulations. So how do you do that on a blockchain? You got to get all these different regulations to all work on the same data set at the same time. That's a nightmare, right? Complete nightmare. So Devio is the first blockchain that can do that in a regulatory compliant fashion. Because of our sharding mechanism, we can say this shard represents the HIPAA compliant people. This shard represents the GDPR compliant people. This shard represents the FISMA or the FIPS, compliant people. And all those people are still on the same intergalactic blockchain you can think of, right?
Yeah.
But they're all segmented into their own shards where their data, happens to be going in and out and living. The other thing that this allows us to do is this company over here is audited by PwC and this one by Deloitte and this one by Ernst & Young, right? So you don't have Ernst & Young all of a sudden saying, hey, you're on that same data plane. I'm going to come in and audit you over there, Mr. Company. You're like, no, we don't even have a contract with you. We're not going to be audited by you. Our people aren't going to like that. So you don't have to really open the doors, right? You can again say, hey, you have these, these different shards. And so being able to operate in a regulatory compliant fashion is a big, big, big deal. And the last thing that enterprises didn't like is, the crypto crowd, the cryptocurrency crowd has given it sort of a little bit of a bad taste because, they'll go and they'll say, oh, this thing got hacked, right? I didn't go to this 51% rule, but, this piece of crypto got stolen or we lost the keys to the crypto exchange over here, right?
Right.
You hear about the guy that, lost his keys and he's paying the city dump $180 million because he wants his keys back on his laptop because there's $600 million of crypto on there, right?
Yeah.
So key loss, theft is a big issue. And the crypto crowd say, oh, $50 million disappeared. Not a big deal. We'll just go and do it. What do you mean not a big deal? Right? That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I get locked out of my account that had $680 million in there. That's a big deal. Why are you guys just shaking this off? Like, gosh, better days. I'd be pretty peeved. So we thought that was just insane, right? We call it the crypto Wild West at Devio. And we say that's just not right. So a long time ago, we patented solutions, for fraud, theft, and loss, where you can recover keys, where you can recover from theft, where you can prevent fraud inside the system. And so we have, a lot of high-level patents on all that stuff, high-level patents on privacy. So all the things that really matter to enterprise. And, our founder, Tom, a long time ago when he did this, because, we're almost 5 years old now from a startup perspective. When he was looking at this in the early crypto days, he's like, why aren't people thinking of this? Like, we put the patent search out there on an international patent and it came back with no prior art. We're like, no prior art. So no one's thought about privacy in blockchain. No one's thought about fraud, theft, and loss in blockchain. This is a little strange, right? So that's what makes Devio a little bit unique in the blockchain space, but that's also what scares enterprises away, is they say, where's the real solution? A lot of people are running out there saying, we have this blockchain thing, build something with it. We have this database, build something with it. And it's like, build something with it. I need a solution. Oracle figured that out a long time ago. They said, we have this database, build it. And some people were, but you look at them now, they don't really sell a database. They sell all these business solutions.
Yeah.
And it happens to be running their database behind the scenes. And that's what Devio has done with our DevESG platform, with the COVID stuff, with our DevSafe solution, with the NFT solution, is we go and sell solutions to companies that happen to be running our blockchain.
Yeah.
Like I get on sales calls and very rarely do I ever say blockchain unless people say, what's this running underneath? Right? I'm saying blockchain a lot to you because you asked. But and what's behind the scenes. But that's where enterprises have been struggling is, what's the solution? Sell me the business value of this. Don't just say, I have a very fast database or I have a great blockchain.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything to people. They just can't, build on that.
Yeah. Man, that's fascinating. It really is. It's amazing. It's that world is changing so rapidly. And has been. I mean, you said you guys are 5 years old. I mean, that world has changed immensely in the last 5 years, right? And so having the ability to quickly and continually pivot and change and address those issues and those concerns, I mean, it's incredible. So kudos to you guys. I wanna take a step back and I want to go way back into the archives. Because a large portion of why I'm doing this and what this is for is, I think people are interested in the stories of those that have done cool things, and you being an expert in blockchain, with your experiences in the past, like talk me through, and you don't have to go like formal education or whatever, but talk me through, like you said, you started out pretty much in the startup phase, like with startup ecosystems, and like why, like where, how did you kind of trip into that, or maybe you didn't trip into it, maybe that's what you always wanted to do in your mind, but like where did that come from, and then kind of what drew you into the blockchain piece with VMware, like give me the why behind the what that happened, right?
Yeah, a little bit of it was luck. A little bit of it was just being at the right place at the right time for a lot of this stuff. A lot of it is just being an inquisitive mind. I started in computers when I think I was about 5 years old. My dad brought home an Atari, game console that had Pong on it. I don't know if you remember Pong. Some of your viewers may be looking at me like, what the heck? Like beer pong? No, not beer pong. Different thing. That would be appropriate for this webcast, I think.
It would.
But not beer pong. Beer pong, the pong game. And so I looked at this console, and it was like the console you plug in the cartridge, and you had the controllers. And I looked at this thing, and I remember taking it apart, and my dad being extremely furious about it. Saved up a lot of money for this thing. The consoles weren't cheap back then, and this is the early '80s. And so then I put it back together, right? And then I started monkeying with it, and then I started to program with it at a very early age.
Wow.
You could write programs, and then back then you would actually have to plug in. It had an audio jack in it, so you plug in the audio jack on the side and hook up a tape recorder, right? And you would write your program in BASIC, and you would hit list on the program, but you'd hit record on the tape, and the tape would record the program through the audio jack. And then you could play the program back, and you hit play on it and, load, and it would load the program back and everything like that. That was the early ways. That'd be 4 floppies.
Yeah.
No floppies were actually floppies, not the hard floppy. And it was just, really an interesting experience. That got me into just being inquisitive, and I programmed a lot, through, kind of middle school and high school, and went to code camps and stuff like that. And then when I was going off to college, I said, I don't really want to be a programmer or be computer science. I was always told, don't do for work what you love to do, because then,
wow, like the opposite of what everybody tells you.
The opposite of everything, right? I was like, that's bad advice. I think they came from a high school counselor. And so I said, okay, I won't do that. I went into school as a music and physics major, and was going to be an acoustical engineer of all things.
Wow.
And dropped the physics after a little while, because I realized that I graduate with a physics degree, I'm going to need another 12 years of school just to do anything.
Yep.
But still loved physics, and we actually have 3 failed physicists on our team. So it's quite interesting. We have these physicists.
They're all kind of drawn to each other.
Yeah, we're drawn to each other, and but kept the music, played music through college and everything like that. And then during college, started working for a computer lab there in one of the colleges. And then afterwards, after college, I worked, for the university for a year in the computer lab, and then went and worked for the Department of Revenue in Georgia, doing email stuff, and became kind of a Novell expert at the time. If you
Yeah,
remember Novell,
I
I
do.
don't know if they're still around or not, but yeah, Novell, and did all that stuff, and then went to work for kind of a value-added reseller. We did a lot of stuff, and really they had two sides. One was telecommunication, and then one was networking. And so I was on the networking side of the world.
Yep.
And then they started to get me into the telecom side of the world when we did these voice over IP systems, right? We
Yep.
had a big partnership with Cisco, and we were putting in all these global networks, anyways, telecommunication networks. We said, hey, let's merge these two things together. And Cisco started to, kind of work with us in the early stages of voice over IP.
Yeah.
And so I started learning things like ring in, ring out, and all this stuff that you want to do on the
Yep.
voice over IP side. And that was pretty fun. So that was kind of a startup-ish type thing. And then they got sold off, and I left that company. And then I think that time I joined Ink2Me. And Ink2Me, was a search company. I was working on the side doing search stuff and all this kind of stuff. So joined Ink2Me, and they were a startup, and running fast and running hard. But this is in the .com days when everybody had like printing presses in the basement and were printing money. Like the year I joined, I remember like a month afterwards, they had the big annual, gathering and stuff like that. They gave the systems engineer, like the pre-sales SE guy, a Ferrari because he sold the most. I was like, a Ferrari, like. And
Wait a minute.
yeah, wait a minute.
Wow.
But it was a great gig, and we sold a lot, and we did a lot of great stuff, but got into a lot of different fields, content delivery, and just started to figure this stuff out. And then went to VMware, and just fell into the virtualization thing. I didn't know who VMware was. The guy from Ink2Me, who was my area rep, my sales rep, because I was on the pre-sale side of the world. Phoned me up, because when I left Ink2Me, they gave me a year's lump sum salary as severance. So I was just kind of resting and chilling.
Wow.
And he said, come over to this company, and left me all these voicemails. I wouldn't return his calls. Sorry, Don. And then this guy named Carl Eschenbach, who became the president of VMware at one point in time, and he called me up, said, hey, why aren't you returning Don's calls? Get on the next plane out to Palo Alto. You're getting hired at this company called VMware. I said, do I have a choice in this? He said, no. So
wow, that's
flew
incredible.
up to Palo Alto and interviewed with them. And
Now, let me pause there. How old were you when this was happening?
I was probably in my mid-20s or so.
Okay, so you were pretty impressionable at that point in time. Somebody says, "Listen, hop on a plane, come out here, like we're hired." You're like,
Don is an amazing guy, ex-Marine guy. I love him to death. We had such a great time. We killed it at Ink2Me. We were a great team.
yeah,
And then Carl is Carl. If you ever meet him, he's just an amazing human being.
yeah,
Throughout, and he's over at Sequoia right now as a VP, right? But he's just an amazing human being and so inspirational. And we became good friends. He's a lifelong mentor of mine now. But so he calls, and you go over there, and I have no idea what VMware is, right? I look it up. I'm like, virtualization. Okay, this is interesting. Try and load it on my laptop, and it bombs out. I'm like,
that was back when like everything was changing in those days. Right? All of the technology, everything was going to virtualization. Everybody's like, "What? Nobody knows what that means. What is?"
Yeah. They had two products. They had a workstation product, and they had a server product that was kind of, again, OS based.
Yep.
And then they were building a new product that stripped the OS out of it and called ESX, this new thing. And so I went out there, and my interview consisted of just a technical interview. And then I went into the CEO, because the CEO, Diane Green, who became, kind of over at Google for a long time, but she interviewed everybody at the company. And so I went into her office to interview her, and it was just supposed to be like a cursory 5-10 minute interview. Saw a picture of a sailboat on the back of her thing. I said, "Oh, I grew up sailing." So I said, I grew up sailing. What's the deal with a sailboat?" I didn't know she had a degree in nautical engineering and designed surfboards and all this kind of stuff, before. No background research. That's my bad on this lady. But really nice lady. And so we sat in there and talked for an hour about sailing. and they kept looking in the windows and looking in the windows like, what's going on? And then I walk out finally, and they're like, what in the world's going on? What about Mike? And she said, oh yeah, hire him. And they're like, what did you talk about for an hour in there? And I was like, we talked about sailing. And they're like, oh, okay.
That's amazing, man.
So I got hired at VMware, and then I was successful at VMware and just doing my stuff. I was the first principal engineer in the field, and myself and another guy named Frank Neidham, who's an awesome guy, got promoted kind of to that level at the same time, and so that was fun. And then a guy who is probably a familiar name for those people that are at VMware still, Raghu Raghuram, who's the new CEO over at another lifelong friend and mentor. Yanked me out of the field. He said, hey, we're starting to get competition. You need to come out and help us with this competitive intelligence stuff.
Wow.
On the technical side. And I said, okay, that's great. And so we did that, for a long time, myself and a guy named Eric Horschman. Had a great time doing that, and then got tired of fighting ghosts. And then Raghu was looking into cloud at the time and said, Mike, you're now on cloud. I said, okay, I'm on cloud. Right. So it wasn't really my getting into all the startup stuff. It was just him pointing me in the right direction. And I said, okay, I'm on cloud. And then I did that for a while. And then we saw the potential, myself and another engineer that's on the west coast of Florida, Curtis Pope, saw the potential for what we could do with cloud in labs, because we were running all the VMware hands-on labs at all the VMworlds that we had, the big user group meetings that we had. And so we saw the potential for this and pitched this idea. They had just started, VMware started a thing called InnoLabs, where a lot of companies, big tech companies have this, where they try and do internal incubators just to prevent engineers from running off and doing stuff. They just keep them in and say, no, do it here. You'll get kind of equity in it, and then we may buy you back or spin you out. So we were the first one to be an InnoLabs project, the first project that VMware ever did that got funded. And so we got funded to do this thing and built this hands-on lab platform, that is called the VMware Learning Platform now. So great solution. We built a solution that would create and destroy a virtual machine, this whole computer environment, right? Create and destroy a virtual machine every 1.5 seconds in the cloud, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Right. So, it was just boom, 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 boom. We built these huge complex systems with all the underlying networking and console displays that worked across any browser, no plugins required, really cutting edge stuff.
Yeah.
Really fun, and had a good team. And then was doing that and got a call from another person inside VMware that said, hey, you've been called Mr. Startup inside of VMware, right? You've done all this stuff. We need to interview some people that are doing startups, to come and do this new project we have. And I said, okay, I'll help you do that. What do you got? And he said, well, we're doing blockchain. I said, well, I've heard of blockchain, but I really have no idea what it is. And but I'll help you interview these people. So after interviewing a couple people, I said, yeah, all the people you're interviewing are kind of idiots. I'll put my name in the hat to help you out, with the startup side of the world and get this thing rolling. And so I did that and had success and liked it and learned a lot. We had some absolutely brilliant researchers there that started it with Guy Galan Guetti and Dahlia Malky, who's now the CTO over at Facebook doing Libra, or whatever Diem's now called, right? So she's over there. The protocol that they're using was created in our research incubator that we gave them hot stuff.
Wow.
And just had an absolutely fabulous time with these researchers, just brilliant people, and created a great team there and everything. And then ended up leaving, last January, and said, now it's time to just move on. And now at Devio, and it's exciting to see the potential for what we can do with this technology, because we had stuff on our roadmap 4 years out at VMware, and we were pretty cutting edge. We were leading in that block.
And you guys had money to spend on it too. You guys.
Yeah, we had money to spend on it, and we were very much leading in that space. We had the most brilliant people there, and the stuff that was on our roadmap 4 years out was already here at Devio in production.
Wow!
So I was like, this is incredible. You've solved so many things. I was just having a chat with Dolly the other day, and I remember when we were trying to do X, Y, and Z? This is what we did, at Devio, and this is how we did. And she's like, huh. It's interesting. So it's just been a good ride. Getting into startups is very risky, right?
Yeah.
Usually involves low pay, a lot of risk, potential for a lot of upside, but I've been at a lot of startups that have gone bust.
Yeah.
And when I told my wife, hey, I'm switching from this nice stable company that I've been at for 18 years, and I think I'm like number 8 by attrition and for seniority here at this company. Yeah, we're going to do that, and I'm going to go over to this startup, and I'm not really going to get paid much, and but it has great potential. And she's looking at me like I have 40 heads, and but she gave me this nice bucket of beer for tonight.
She
So
did give you, and
obviously,
you haven't had much of that bucket of beer here.
she has the biggest heart of any person I've ever met. That's why I married her. So
That's amazing, man. It sounds
um,
very similar to some conversations I've had with my wife. So
yeah, yeah.
it's awesome. So if you today were to give your younger self a piece of advice, what would you do? Pre everything, right? You today would give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice. What would that piece of advice be?
Don't take the blue pill. No. Let's see here. Stay in the dream. But gosh, there's a lot of stuff. On the career technology side, it would be, probably the biggest thing is to not be the smartest person in the room, right? I've seen too many leaders, especially that are out there. When you're in career progression, you're trying to work your way up the ladder, a lot of times, or work your way to a more senior post and better pay. Is they try to be the smartest person for a very long time.
Yeah.
And there's just so many smart people out there that are out there. So my management style is usually, I have 2 jobs as a manager. A lot of times for my team, I try and hire A plus 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 players. Hire really smart people. But my job as a manager for them, once you get those people in, is to protect them. So protect them, protect them, protect them. Don't put the trash down on them. Take all the heat as a manager.
Yeah.
That's your job, right? And then support them. Make sure they have the tools and the flexibility and the freedom to express their opinions. Support the heck out of them and protect them. And then just let them go do their jobs. And they will do amazing, amazing, amazing stuff, right? And it is really that simple as a manager. So that's my biggest thing. Don't be the smartest person in the room, right?
Yeah.
There's just a lot of smarter people out there.
Yeah. No, that's huge, man. That's huge. So where Devio is today, what is it for the listeners in our audience, those that we're going to send this to and blast it out to? In what way can they help? What are you guys looking for? What types of introductions? What types of conversations?
Mm-hmm.
How can our group help you?
Yeah, so given it's IoT centric, right?
Yeah.
One of the biggest pushes that we're doing these days, and one of the things that I'm in charge of, my great compatriot Chris Church, who's an absolutely brilliant person in his own right, on this call, he's our Chief Business Development Officer. He's really leading the NFT charge, the non-fungible token charge, which is pretty powerful on our platform. I've been leading the ESG charge, right? The environmental, social, governance charge. And the biggest thing that we have on that side for this group is the portfolio partners, right? You may be one of those partners that has an extremely interesting solution, right? That you're going in direct selling to customers to say, for example, a land sequestrant, right? I have this sensor that goes out there and we can, measure your land and everything like this and help you see and reduce carbon footprint. Or we have another partner that helps with IoT sensors go out there and measure your energy usage and then help you adjust that kind of energy on demand type thing to do off-peak, energy usage and reduce your power bill. And their big proposition is we're going to reduce your power bill by 50%. So they go and partner with us and we say, well, send that information to the Dev ESG platform. We can then go introduce you to several other customers that are looking for this, because we can go to customers and say, hey, we can reduce your power bill and we'll introduce you to this company and we'll help sell the solution and bring the solution together. But then based on that data of your energy reduction, we can create scope 2 carbon offset credits, right?
Yeah.
Sell on the exchange. So you win twice, right? You can sell these carbon offset credits and you can reduce your energy bill. You just participate on the Dev ESG platform, which is a big win for them. And this IoT company that normally says, hey, we're just going to reduce your energy bill, they can now say, we're going to reduce your energy bill, and through our partner Devio, we can go ahead and create carbon offsets that you can sell through the system. So it's a win both directions, right? They get an introduction to more people and more customers as an IoT company, and have something value added that they can sell, from the other side of the platform. They can also go to that same one and say, oh, do you want a better rating on that? We have ratings companies that participate in that DevESG platform where they can tap into that data again that this IoT company is sending into the DevESG platform, verify the data, do a rating on it, put a non-fungible token in it that represents that, that then goes to that company. We have other people that participate in the system that do third-party verification and audit, people like the big audit firms, and verifiers that are out there. We have investors linked into the platform to say, hey, we are thinking on investing in this company that's out there, but we want to make sure that their ESG platform is okay, right? So all this stuff from this IoT company, now they get to tap into this universe of potential out there, that's on that DevESG platform.
Yeah.
That's huge. On top of that same platform, I promised I wouldn't say cryptocurrency, but I'm going back in there now.
Do it.
We have plans to launch a Devi cryptocurrency, right? And the Devi cryptocurrency, nice thing about it is it's tied to the same platform, right? So the power of this platform grows, and the power of that Devi cryptocurrency token grows. And along with it, 90% of the proceeds that come back into that Devi, right? Because we're issuing that token at this point in time, or will be in the future. That 90% of those proceeds go back investing in those companies, right? So if you're an IoT company, not only do you get this expansive universe that you can tap into and sell all these other widgets, but you now have the potential to do a non-dilutive raise for your company for capital so that you can extend your projects even further.
Wow.
Right. So there's all sorts of potential through that DevESG platform, right? And that's unique to Devio that we're doing that because, that power of that platform. But even outside of that, if you have a project, again, this is great at storing time series order data, but you need something that'll do it private. You need something that'll scale. You need something that can do it in a regulatory fashion. You need something that can do it against fraud, theft, and loss. And we're really the only game out there that can do that in an energy efficient, fashion and an affordable solution, right? For that platform. So that's the power of Devio. Come to us if you're one of those companies.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, man. It really is. It is such a complex piece of technology, like everything that is within it. I mean, you've definitely demystified it a little bit for me. So I appreciate kind of bringing it back and talking us through it in more simplistic terms. It's just fascinating, and it's going to be amazing to see really what happens in the next year to 5 years with blockchain and the widespread adoption of organizations that like when they will use it, how they will use it. It's super fascinating. Mike, I appreciate so much your time. Thank you for joining us on Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. You were episode 4. I appreciate you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Cheers. Have a good night.
Well, that was episode 4 of Drinks at the Forefront of IoT with Mike DiPetrillo, Chief Revenue Officer of Devio. I hope that you enjoyed listening to just his vast knowledge on blockchain, what it is, his past, his history. I mean, if there was somebody to have on this series in this webcast that knows what he's talking about when it comes to that world, he was it. So I enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it. It was awesome. Be on the lookout for next episode number 5. We're at 5 already. Every time I do this, I just can't believe that this is continuing. So super excited to have Sonny Trin, who is the VP of Demand Creation for Avnet. He will be on next episode. As always, we are ever so grateful for our sponsors, Aaron, Jetstore, Simwell, and TrueFit. We're going to be kicking off some individual sponsorship episodes. Sponsorship. I'll get it. sponsorship spotlight episodes. There it is. We'll be spinning those out here in the next few weeks. We've got some additional folks that I've added that I just absolutely positively cannot pass up. So I'm excited to get to those in the middle of the summer here. Very excited. So be on the lookout. Next episode. It's going to be great. If you're not following us yet, follow us. I've got 8 subscribers on YouTube, so that's pretty cool. Be awesome if I get to 10. Really start monetizing that channel at 10. It's amazing. No, but seriously, I don't do this for the sake of monetizing that. I enjoy doing what I do. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on LinkedIn, IoT Media and Entertainment. Check us out online, upiot.co. I'm grateful if you've made it this far and you're continuing to check the progress and see how we're doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, enjoy your wine, enjoy your whiskey, enjoy your beer on these hot summer days. We will see you on the next episode of Drinks at the Forefront of IoT. Cheers.